stage looking. Folks, go and look for the Ioniq 6, Ioniq. It's kind of like the guys that from Classic, okay? They don't know how to spell either. Ioniq 6. It is the coolest looking car. It looks like something from the Jetsons. It is the coolest car, okay? And it's still got the 10-year, 100,000-mile warranty. I believe, as a matter of fact, the batteries are warranted for 150,000 miles. That's what they were telling me. And it is an awesome-looking vehicle. It looks so much better in person than the pictures do. And I had two people, actually, when we stopped and we took some pictures, people pulled over and said, this is the coolest looking car. So spacious. It's got a 12.3-inch cluster display, and it's got all these features. You know, Hyundai's got so high-tech stuff. But all the lane keeping assist and all that space age, all that safety stuff, it's got everything you'd want. But my gosh, it had such cool stuff. But it's just amazing how it has everything in it you would ever want. But it looks, it's so neat. You know, it's got a, you know, like I said, the bigger battery. Normally that's $10,000. Like Ford charges $10,000 extra. Okay. But you can get the dual motor, all-wheel drive, and all that stuff, and it's like $3,500 extra. And it's just so neat. But it's so fast. I can't believe it's so darn fast. It's just nuts. Some of these people say it didn't as good a range as, but I drove it. I got better range than it said it would. It's really neat because the floor is flat and it feels so much bigger than a regular sedan. And I can't believe it's so quiet and it's sound deadening, but it doesn't sound like you're in a tomb either. If you look at some of the pictures in this thing, it really is. It's a 12.3-inch dual gauge cluster and a 12.3-inch infotainment screen, and they're easy to use. And it really works well. It's just so cool how it works. And I just think that they've got the fast charging thing down. They've got everything down. I just think if they're all starting to look like this, I think this will be a nice second vehicle for a lot of people. And
I got to say, I'm glad we're recording this because we got Mike Herzing on tape saying that he's kind of into electric cars.
This one is pretty cool. You know, if this was like an SUV, it would be really good because it's got enough range you can actually do something and get somewhere charging. You know what I mean? It's just when you get into this, because I've driven some of these vehicles, you know, these pickup trucks and stuff that say I'm going to get 300 miles of range and 150 miles later it's empty.
Yeah, now, it's done.
It's done, and that's not going to work for us. You know, I can't get anywhere that far. And this one was real. And I had 3 people in it. So it isn't like it was empty. Okay. Yeah. And these were not small. Me and this other guy, we're big guys. You know, Claudia was not that big, but still, we were big guys. So it's not like it was empty. So you've got to think about that. So, all right, folks, we've got a lot of stuff going on. It was just exciting. So I'm going to thank the folks for Hyundai for giving me the chance to drive that stuff. And go to you know, Hyundai.com or HyundaiUSA.com and check out some of the stuff they've got on there. But you can just check with your Hyundai dealer because these cars are there. That's the best part. Hyundai Ioniq 6. So you want to do that. IONIQ-6. Awesome vehicle. All right, folks. Don't forget that you can catch this show as a podcast on iTunes,
Mill Creek
Spotify,
Golf Course has been the Valley's leader for golfing fun since 1928. It features 36 challenging holes designed by the legendary Donald Ross and was voted a top 30 municipal facility by Golf Week in 2012. The Mill Creek Golf Shop is a certified Callaway Golf custom fitting center and it is stocked with your favorite golf apparel and accessories. Mill Creek Golf Course is now booking tee times for this year's golf season. Please call us at 330-740-7112 or online at millcreekmetroparks.org.
The game is over, but this time, instead of asking how many goals did you score or what were your stats, try asking these questions. Were you a good teammate? Were you coachable? Did you give 100%? And did you have fun? Because those are the values that school sports instill in Ohio's young people, where winning and losing are secondary to the life lessons that will stay with kids long after their playing days are over. This is the Ohio High School Athletic Association. Educate through sports.
You're listening to Western Reserve Radio at westernreserveradio.com on the Live 365 network and the Live 365 app.
Basically ends up all of a sudden now he's into the $25,000 or $30,000 range, and he's getting all the cool cars he's always wanted. So we're going to talk about that in the podcast. So if you get a chance, log into our podcast on iTunes and Spotify and check out this, because that's our subject for this week. All right. And if you haven't checked out Jeremy's classic.com site, please do it. CLASIQ.com. And as always, on behalf of Jeremy Birnbaum, our producer Sean Mapes, and myself, I want to thank everybody for joining us today on the Let's Talk Wheels Radio Network. I'm Mike Herzing. He's Jeremy Birnbaum. We appreciate everybody tuning in, and we're going to talk to you next week. Have an awesome week, folks.
Bunch of flavors that's unlike any other. You get the crispy tenderness of the chicken and that hint of sourness from the pickles. Ta-da!
Hey, I'm Juan, and what makes Chick-fil-A chicken sandwich original to me is you're going to get chicken that's crispy, golden, and juicy. This is the gold standard of chicken sandwiches.
Order the original Chick-fil-A chicken sandwich on the Chick-fil-A app today. Real customers paid for their testimonials.
You're going on a trip, but where are you going to stay? How much will it cost? Well, it'll cost less by booking on besthotelrates.com. BestHotelRates.com works with all the top hotels in the country while delivering you great hotel and room choices for the best prices. Why wait? Go to BestHotelRates.com, enter your email address, and start shopping for your next hotel room. BestHotelRates.com, it's in the name. BestHotelRates.com.
Wake up calls! Miami Heat are the band of misfit toys. Pat Riley has done this for his entire life. They have a bunch of undrafted players on the Miami Heat who are contributing great success. He said John Starks was bagging groceries. He found a number of other players on the Knicks back in the day. He's doing that with the Miami Heat. And I like that analogy. The Island of Misfits Toys is one of the saddest Christmas things that you see when Rudolph and company go visit, and there's the water gun that shoots jelly.
The train with square wheels.
That's right.
There was the cowboy that rides an ostrich.
Look at you. Look at you, man.
Charlie in the box.
Charlie in the box.
What was the other one?
A couple of others. There was a polka dotted elephant or something like that.
I don't understand why that was.
There was a tugboat that blew bubbles. I can't think of a better analogy to make than the land of misfit toys, land of misfit NBA players.
Wake up call with Tony D and Ron Culver. Weekday mornings from 9 to noon Eastern.
Wake up calls. Even as a young man, I would always go, how do you not know that this issue is coming? It's one of the most famous things in America is the Sports Illustrated swimsuit issue. Did you think we were going to forget about it one year?
Back in the 90s, 80s,
God, yeah.
You had that circled on your calendar.
Always mid-February.
You knew exactly what was coming out.
My favorite was Kathy Ireland. She was my favorite swimsuit.
Nah, that's a good call.
Wake up call with Tony D and Ron Culver. Weekday mornings from 9 to noon Eastern.
If you're missing the cash in with Jason Page, then you're missing this.
Not to get all geeky, but his
get geeky, please.
A lot of his underlying stats like barrel rate and just average exit velocity, they all looked great last year. Well, it was kind of there we go. All right. You were setting me up the entire time. I'm done.
They're all right. Can I do a little ASMR?
I mean, if you are going to start that OnlyFans, I think that could go well.
In play.
Expected ERA.
Expected wins above replacement. Oh, that's great. Nothing turns me on more than batted balls in play.
Expected WOBA.
The Cash In, weeknights at 10 Eastern, 7 Pacific on Sports Map Radio.
First Name Sports with Greg Frank.
The stolen base is back, and that's a good thing in baseball. The stolen base is an exciting play. It's a cat and mouse game between the pitcher and the base runner. When you would walk Ricky Henderson, it was a double because he was stealing second every time. Players like that, we need to see more of in the game because it's entertainment. The way in which the game is played to its core has been changed for the good.
First Name Sports, weekday afternoons from 2 to 4 Eastern.
You're listening to WRDB, Western Reserve Digital Broadcasting, Youngstown, Warren, Salem, and around the world.
driving has a rhythm all its own. Don't wreck it with a text. Before you get behind the wheel, silence your phone. Or better yet, designate a texter. For more text-free driving tips, visit stoptextstoprex.org. Brought to you by the Ad Council and the National Highway Traffic Safety Administration.
Located in Applewood Estates in Boardman Township, the Applewood Swim and Tennis Club offers a pleasant family environment. Choose a membership that meets your needs and enjoy a relaxing venue that includes not only swimming for the family, but also youth activities such as competitive swimming, tennis, and more. Enjoy the friendly atmosphere all summer long with the staff and members of the Applewood Swim and Tennis Club. For more information, go to applewoodswimandtennis.com or call 330-953-2833.
During the fall and winter, grilling season never ends, and Gessler Propane is your local supplier that makes sure you get your hard-earned money's worth. Why go to gas exchanges to pay higher prices for tanks not filled to capacity? Gessler Propane makes sure you're prepared for year-round grilling with 100% filled tanks at a reasonable cost. See Bob Monday through Friday, 10 to 4, and Saturday, 9 to 3 at Gessler Propane, 702 Youngstown Poland Road, Struthers, or call 330-755-9119. Gessler Propane. They got gas.
Mill Creek Golf Course is the Valley's leader for golfing fun with a practice range, short game area, and hole 55 bar and grill all on site. Mill Creek Golf Course features a friendly PGA professional staff available for instruction, along with 36 challenging holes designed by the legendary Donald Ross. Don't forget family fun night golf on Fridays and Saturdays for just $25. For details and tee times, call 330-740-7112 or go online to millcreekmetroparks.org.
It's time to kick back and listen to the sports page with your host, Pat Lucia, right here on Western Reserve Radio. You can call the show at 330-707-4202 and tell everyone what's on your mind in the wonderful world of sports. Now, here's your host, Pat Lucia.
Saturday morning sports page, Pat Lucia, 330-707-4202. Get in, talk sports. We do it every Saturday morning here, and that's Western Reserve Radio at the Gessler Propane Studios, where the show is being done. A lot going on in the wonderful world of sports. Back from last week, taking a week off, and have we got a lot to get to this weekend. I think we get NBA. Big game last night, a shocking game last night for those watching. The Miami Heat upset the Boston Celtics, going up on that series 2-0. The Heat came back and won the game 111-105, going up 2-0, winning the first two games in Boston. Now the series will shift back to Miami, and now the question's going to be, does Boston even win a game in this series? This is the question of the day. The Miami Heat catching absolutely everybody by surprise. Nobody could see this coming. I know the Miami Heat beat the Milwaukee Bucks, number 1 seed, in 5 games. They beat a very aggressive and a pesky Knick team in 6 games. And now it looks like the Miami Heat, who are a number 2 seed, are basically, in essence, going to go by the wayside. And I don't know if the Boston Celtics can come back and win this series. Again, they were the 2 seed. Miami they beat a 1 seed. I believe the Knicks were the 5 seed. And now Boston is a 2 seed. And this basically looks like this series potentially could be over. The only question is, can Boston potentially play their way back into this series? It's not looking good for the Boston Celtics, which basically means the Miami Heat would be in the NBA Finals. Last time they were in the NBA Finals was during the COVID year when they played in the bubble and Miami Heat lost to the LA Lakers. One other note before I move over to the LA Lakers, Jim Brown, maybe the greatest football player of all time. I don't even know if there's a maybe about it. I believe Jim Brown was the greatest football player of all time. Jim Brown passed away yesterday at the age of 87, and I did get to watch 1 year of Jim Brown. In 1965, I was 9 years old and actually started watching pro football. Read all about Jim Brown, got to see a year of Jim Brown playing, and I personally think, and I've always said it, that I thought Jim Brown was the greatest football player ever to play. Different era, different time. I know people say Brady, talk about the football players today, but football back in the 50s and the 60s and even into the 70s was a different game altogether than it is today. And obviously, condolences go out to Jim Brown's family. Everybody, obviously, in mourning of the passing of Jim Brown. In my eye, not only the greatest football player, but a great activist and a great athlete. And that's what everybody does not understand is Jim Brown, when he went to Syracuse, was an absolutely great. He was not only played basketball, he also played lacrosse. So Jim Brown was an all-around great athlete. Maybe he was Bo Jackson before Bo Jackson. But Jim Brown had over 12,000 yards in rushing. And when you look at his statistics, he only played 9 years in the NFL. And that's the amazing part. I think he retired at the age of 29. He got into a dispute over acting with the then owner, Art Modell. And Jim Brown was late for training camp. After this is 65, he played his last year, but in 66, he was in that movie, The Dirty Dozen, which when I was a kid, I went to see that movie. And I was absolutely crushed when Jim Brown's character died in the movie. I was bummed out. I was absolutely, here I am, a 10-year-old kid, went to that movie. I don't even know back then they were rated M or they didn't. Anyway, I watched that movie, saw Jim Brown. I love Jim Brown's character. I love Jim Brown. I was afraid of Jim Brown, though I had his football card. And he scared me as a kid, but I loved watching Jim Brown play because he looked mean as a kid growing up. And he was, I mean, I think not only was I a 10-year-old kid scared, I think he scared the other football players who had to try to tackle him back then.
Right.
But Jim Brown ultimately retired because Art Modell didn't want to pay him. And in essence, he ended up being into Hollywood and then got into acting. And I did get to actually see a few Jim Brown movies, which I thought I loved his movies. I thought he was like one of the best actors of all time. I was like totally like, oh man, Jim Brown is just not only is a great football player, but he's that great, man. I saw that movie Tick, Tick, Tick.
Yeah.
He played a prison guard. Then he was in a movie called The Split, where they were involved in like a bank robbery and some kind of a money thing. And I just thought, I went to those movies, man, Jim Brown, these are great movies.
Yeah. Yeah.
A 10-year-old, 12-year-old movie critic.
Right. Yeah. And, a lot of dispute, all that, like you said, with Brady, whether he was the great. I mean, they don't compare to him. The reason I say that is, now I'm younger than you, but I remember seeing it, watching also, because it was drilled into me as my dad was a big Cleveland Browns fan. And I think as I was, I look at old stuff when I was little. Yeah. I had every Jim Brown. I got his jersey, the little plastic helmet. I had everything Jim Brown. And if it wasn't boxing or that, those are the things that I was instilled in me. So I remember seeing him play. I remember I was crying because they got destroyed by the Green Bay Packers.
1965.
Yep.
I watched that game. I was upset. I was too. I was rooting for. I loved rooting for Jim Brown.
Yeah. So it was the guy, and the thing back then, that's what they don't understand. We talk about football, maybe not today because it's spread out, but if you go to the 2000s and back, we talk about 8 in the box, this and that. There was 9 and 10 in the box because back then for them, because there wasn't a passing game. It was a running game. So when you went to play the Browns, even though they had other great players around them, they did. They definitely did, but they didn't throw the ball like that. You knew you had to stop him to be able to slow the Cleveland Browns down, and they still couldn't. And and I still remember, like he said, he talked about it. I guess it was an interview they showed. I guess back in 2015, he was talking about he used the tactic of always getting up slow to make them think that that's it. He's done.
He's hurt.
But he comes back with more force the next play. So it's just he punished guys, he faked guys out. He was a cutback runner. He had great speed. He had so many things that happened. I forgot the defensive back for the New York Giants, who said him and Sam Huff came up to hit him. And he said the defensive back got to him first. And he hit him in his thighs. And he said he knocked all of his front teeth out, broke his nose. And the next time they looked, he seen the back of the jersey going down the field. He ran through the defensive back and Sam Huff, who was one of the best middle linebackers ever.
Right, yep.
And he said that the guy was just unbelievable. And I to this day, I really believe, and Jim Brown said in an interview one day, the closest he's seen, he loved Walter Payton. He always talked about he said, but the closest he's seen to an athlete like him was Bo Jackson.
Yeah, Bo.
And he said he wished he would have been a full-time just football player. And you'll probably seen the second coming, because if you watch just some of the films of the time that he did play, that's who it was reminding me of. I mean, sometimes he would fake guys out. Sometimes he just said, I'm just running straight through them, and he did. And it reminded me, and I looked at some of that, and it was showing it clip by clip together. It would remind you of Jim Brown. Unbelievable.
Yeah, I mean, I just remember as a kid watching him, nobody seemed to be able to tackle him. And if they tackled him, it was like gang, 5, 6, 7 guys would have to take him down. And again, he had that thing of getting up really slow, as you said.
Yep.
Psyching the other players out only to come back again. Yeah. And I remember a game, he played the Giants 1965. The Giants were winning the game. They were up like 28-0 early. The Giants, and then the Browns just came back, won the game.
Mm-hmm.
And Jim Brown, just watching him play as a kid, I would watch the tape, the film, and get the sports. Back then, there wasn't a lot of football on, not like it is today.
Right.
So very limited. And living in New York, I didn't really get to see the Cleveland Browns play. I just saw the Giants play.
Right.
And then there were the blackouts back then, so you listened to games on radio.
Mm-hmm.
It's totally different now, but back then, so I watch highlights.
Mm-hmm.
You probably watched a lot of highlights. Now you could watch YouTube. Now you can get into some of the YouTube stuff and watch him there. But you could see an absolutely unbelievable, greatest player. That's why I think as growing up, reading about him and watching what I could, that he just stood out as by far the best player. Like, there was no question in my mind who the greatest player was growing up. It was Jim Brown.
Right.
I mean, Johnny Unitas, and there were some great players. I don't, mean to say, well, those guys were good. They were great players, but nobody stood out.
Right.
And no one had the dominance. And what people do forget is back in 1964, when the Cleveland Browns did win the NFL title back then, they beat the heavily favored Baltimore Colt team 27-0 in the championship, and caught everybody off guard, totally.
Right.
And they had a great Cleveland Brown team of Frank Ryan was the quarterback, Gary Collins, and obviously Jim Brown.
Right.
And, you could go down that. It was a great team back then in Cleveland. And Jim Brown, the sad part to me was Jim Brown should have played longer, but Modell, the owner, just the shorts. The thing that always kind of caught me now, especially when I was little, I couldn't figure out why he was retiring because he was so good.
Right.
And then, he played his last game against the Packers and lost. 65 final game. I think it was 24-12 they lost. And it was just like, then he retired. And I was like, because he wanted to do movies. And then later on, it comes out, he was making more money, much more money doing movies than he was playing football.
Right.
and then he wanted, we wanted a raise. He wanted more money, and Modell wouldn't give it to him.
Right.
And then Modell was fining him for not coming to training camp.
Mm-hmm.
So then he just said, "Hey, I retire. I'm going to go do movies."
Yep. Or I'm sure, because he was at the prime of his career at that time.
He was 29.
Right.
Yeah.
And he was really just going to another stratosphere. So I'm thinking 3 or 4 more years he might have played, but we didn't get that opportunity to see. And another great interview yesterday I heard was Paul Warfield talking about when he got drafted to him. And he said he stuck to him because what stood out, he was a great football player, but he said what stood out to him that was the best asset that Jim Brown had, he was the most cerebral and mentally guy he's ever been around. He knew every defensive line alignment. He knew what teams were going to do against him. He was studied like that back in that day, and know what guys going to do before they played him. So he knew just how he needed to run, how he needed what holes to go to, and and he said that was the strongest part of his thing is his mental and his strategic way of playing the game. So that's the guy that was thinking way before his time. He was before his time. So
he was only 21 years old. This is the
when
part
he came in the league.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So he basically, he basically left or graduated Syracuse a year early.
Yeah.
If you look at, time, he's 21. He played Cleveland 12 games, mind you. That's what they played back then. He had 942 yards his rookie year, 9 touchdowns, leading the league in both those categories.
Mm-hmm.
And then the next year, when he was only 22 years old, he had 1,527 yards rushing in league. He had, in 9 years, he had 12,312 yards. The numbers are staggering. I could probably tell you today, we'll probably never see, especially the way the game is played today, with the emphasis not really on running backs long term. I don't think there's a running back will ever come close to this ever again. Just because running backs have a shelf life in the NFL of 3 to 4 years, and after that, with contracts, maybe they get 5 or 6 years.
Yeah.
Maybe the game is brutal today, but running backs just don't. You don't see running backs going. You might. What do you think? Do you really think we'll see a player ever in this day and age and the way the game is played today ever come close to these numbers?
No, not as far as when you say numbers in average,
even yards. Like his yards, like Jim Brown, like his last year in the league, he had 1,544 yards.
Mm-hmm.
And that's only in 14 games, mind you.
Right.
So people need to understand a few things. In 12 games in 1958, he had 1,500 yards, 1,527 in 12 games.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
That's
the thing. That's why, I always when they debate about who could do this and who could do that, and the only record that he stood by to say, hey, this is the greatest record, was really O.J. Simpson's 2000. He said because this guy did it in 14, and people ever look back at that season when he went, he got kicked out of a game. O.J. Simpson for getting into
2000. Back in 1973.
Yeah, he got kicked out of
when
a
he
game.
Got to 2003.
Remember, he got in a fight against the Patriots and scuffle and everything, and they disqualified them from the game.
Right.
And he still rushed for 2003, and he said that's the only record he looks at and says that's a whole different animal, because they knew the same thing that was on him, that he's getting the football. You knew that OJ was getting the football back then, and they still couldn't stop him.
And one thing to add to that, back in 1973, the last game of the year, the Buffalo Bills played down the New York Jets on Shea Stadium, and that basic field was a sheet of ice. It was a grass field, and that absolutely how OJ ran and got that record on that field with the field conditions, what they were, is unbelievable in itself. It's like not only did he get the record, it's almost the field that he broke that on was unbelievable because
he got way up in the hundreds in that on that
I have
game.
to look. Yeah, because bottom line,
I don't.
He broke that record, and I know when I started, that game was on TV, and I remember it well, and I remember it didn't even look like OJ was going to get near that record, and then he just went like totally off the rails in the second half,
right?
And nobody could tackle him and touch him, and that field again was an absolute mess that he played on,
right?
And again, OJ getting that record, back then.
These guys, I mean, boy, to be blessed with the ability to do what these guys did is just unbelievable. And you know, it'd be hard to ever see that way the game is played today. You know, you just don't run the running backs like that no more. So, I mean, I agree with you. I don't think you'll see in a perspective. You may see guys get 1,800 yards. Different. I mean, your Derrick Henrys, the guys that they pounded with, but on a regular basis, to see those type of numbers, you won't see them like we used to see back then, for sure.
No, you never will. And I mean, I think the bottom line is, the year that was Buffalo Bills beat the New York Jets 34-14 on that day in December, and they played it was December 16th, and it was at Chase Stadium, and it was 31 degrees. The field was just an absolute quagmire of and O.J. Simpson basically ran 34 attempts for 200 yards, touchdown, and had a long run of 30 yards.
Yeah,
so O.J. had 200 yards on a field that, nobody basically could run on that field.
Right.
I mean, when you just look at it, I mean, the Jets' Emerson Boozer had 32 yards. Mike Adamle had 6 yards. Now, Jim Braxton, OJ's fullback, had 98 yards.
Right.
And that goes to show you that game back then was just played. Joe Ferguson was the quarterback for Buffalo. Get this. He was 3 for 5, 70 yards.
And people
Ferguson,
know he wasn't a bad.
Joe Ferguson was a good quarterback.
Yeah,
I mean, he's not Hall of Famer, but he was a good quarterback.
Yeah.
Joe Ferguson was a good quarterback back then.
Yeah,
but again,
that just lets you know they ran the ball. And you knew that's what they were going to do.
Right,
and he still couldn't stop him.
OJ ran 34 times, 200 yards, a touchdown. Jim Braxton was 24 attempts, 98 yards, and 2 touchdowns.
And between those two was 58 runs.
58 runs, and they were 298 yards for 2 guys. And Jim Braxton's longest gain was 18 yards. OJ's was 30. That's the longest run he had was 30. That goes to show you the game back then, and that field that they played on was just an absolute mess of a field. Because I remember when that game, they went to the game at they were doing like the NFL show, and they were saying, "Oh, this field is a mess. It's icy. There's no way if OJ's breaking the record. I don't know how they were like, I don't know how he can do it on this field."
I remember him talking about moving the game or trying to.
Right.
They had nowhere to move it to.
Nowhere. Right.
Yeah, and they wanted to move because that's how bad. And Shea Stadium was terrible way back then, even back then. In 73.
Well,
it was baseball field.
It was a baseball field with they had that crappy. What they did is they brought in like sod to fill over the infield once the baseball season was done, and that sod was just an absolute disaster.
Right.
And players trying to play on sod, and that was always ripped up.
Yeah. Especially in that quagmire they had.
And that was muddy. It was 31. I remember it was rainy, cold, snowy. It was icy. And if I actually have been to Shea Stadium.
Yeah, me too.
Actually, you were too.
Yep.
I remember we went to Jet games in the 60s. I was at the Oakland Raider New York Jet game in 68 when the Jets beat them and went on to the Super Bowl. because we had season tickets. We actually got the season tickets, like, I believe in 66, because we couldn't get Giant tickets because the Giants had been sold out. You had to wait on a list forever. The Shea, because it was the AFC, those sticks were easy available.
Yeah.
But Shea Stadium sat right on Flushing Bay, cold. That wind would come off that bay. Oh my gosh! And the airport, LaGuardia, was right there. You hear the airplanes coming in and the wind blowing off that bay. You talk about one cold place
and one scary place, because when the planes would come from LaGuardia, it sounded like they're coming and going to crash right into the stadium.
Yeah, exactly.
That's
They
how it
did.
sounded.
Oh, yeah, you couldn't hear. Right.
You'd be scared. You'd be looking up to make sure, is this thing going over or not?
Or is it going to make it? Or is it going to come into the because it would fly in. You could hear those planes. And that's the other thing. If you're a quarterback, I don't know how the players could hear the signal between the airplanes coming in because it was so loud.
Yeah, and it was constant.
And it was all the time.
Yeah. Unbelievable.
But
conditions.
The conditions back then, just a whole different animal.
Yeah.
But, you're going back to, obviously, we went off kind of the rail a little bit, talking about, which we do all the time on this show. That's what this show is based on, is going off into the tangent. But that just brings us back to football. But that's when you talk about Jim Brown and his numbers and his statistics, it's just an unbelievable player that he was. And we'll just never see, at least in my eyes, or maybe I'm wrong, I don't think we're ever going to see a running back, because of the way the game is today, will ever be in the class of Jim Brown.
Right. Yep. Yeah. I mean, you're not going to see it again. So, I mean, a lot of times that we say these things and somebody pop up, but the way the game is played, I don't think you'll ever see it again. I think that was it. So, if you, like we said, you said it earlier, if you want to see some things, get on YouTube and just see what type of, ball player. But, like I said, he was a guy before his time. To be that size with that type of speed and agility and hand and eye coordination, thing about it, he didn't catch a lot of passes back then, but if he had to, they said he probably could be, I bet Paul Warford said he probably could have been a leading receiver, because his hand-eye coordination was so great from playing lacrosse,
right,
that he in practice, they throw the ball and he catch the ball any kind of way you want. One hand, did whatever he had to do, but they didn't play the game the way they play the game today. So
no, he actually played basketball at Syracuse.
Right.
I think his sophomore year. I was looking this up. This is what blows me away with Jim Brown. Is great, but he was an unbelievable athlete. Like the lacrosse and the basketball skill. I bet you, if he wanted to, I think Jim Brown would have been an unbelievable, great baseball player.
He probably could play it. You had hand-eye coordination.
Because he had hand-eye coordination like no tomorrow. I would love to get a bat in his hand, say, okay, take a year and figure. I would say that he would have been like See, I always equate, when you think of great players, like of all time, I always say Babe Ruth being baseball, because you'll just never have a player like Ruth. If you start breaking down how many at-bats and how many homers, it's just off the charts. Like Ruth, and it goes back a whole total different era. But then I always equate Babe Ruth and Jim Brown as almost like in the same talk. Like Babe Ruth, the greatest baseball player, Jim Brown, the greatest football player. No doubt. I mean, there were great baseball players though, but just to know what Ruth did statistically is unbelievable. Same thing with Jim Brown. What Jim Brown did statistically was off the charts.
Yep. And that's why you hate when things happen. As I said, one of that Babe Ruth, that when you think now, I'll never equate this guy to Babe Ruth, but you hate the steroid era and everything like that. Barry Bonds was one of the best athletes I ever seen play baseball for our time. But that will always mirror, and with Bo Jackson, it's because of the injury.
Yeah.
Football.
Yeah, Babe. We're gonna come back half hour. This is first quarter, Saturday morning sports page. Back after this.
Sandrock Concrete specializes in all types of concrete, driveways, sidewalks, basements, and garages. We also do stamped colored concrete in many different designs. We do interior and exterior stonework, regular brick and block work. Sandrock Concrete is fully insured. Call Jerry Sandrock at 330-506-0013 for an estimate. Also find them on Facebook at Sandrock Concrete LLC. Sandrock Concrete, where you deal with the owner all the time.
WWE superstar Alberto Del Rio, take one.
Behold the angry giant.
Try it again, Alberto.
Behold the angry giant.
Perfect. Good luck tonight.
Behold the angry giant.
Yay! Read me another one, Dad.
This is WWE superstar Alberto Del Rio. It only takes a moment to make a moment. Take time to be a dad today.
Visit fatherhood.gov, brought to you by the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services and the Ad Council.
Mill Creek Golf Course has been the Valley's leader for golfing fun since 1928. It features 36 challenging holes designed by the legendary Donald Rossman, was voted a top 30 municipal facility by Golf Week in 2012. The Mill Creek Golf Shop is a certified Callaway Golf custom fitting center, and it is stocked with your favorite golf apparel and accessories. Mill Creek Golf Course is now booking tee times for this year's golf season. Please call us at 330-740-7112 or online at millcreekmetroparks.org.
Let's be real. The odds of a high school athlete getting a college scholarship and making it to the pros are pretty slim. Don't get me wrong, it's okay to dream of becoming a pro athlete, even a famous one. But that's not why I play. My reason why? I love the competition.
My reason why is community.
My reason why is leadership.
My reason why is to challenge myself.
My reason why is love for the game.
And hey, if we don't make it to the pros or onto the cover of Sports Illustrated, that's okay, because there's every reason to believe we'll excel in something even bigger than sports. We'll excel in life.
There are lots of great reasons to play high school sports. Tell us your reason using the hashtag #MyReasonWhy.
This message presented by the NFHS and the Ohio High School Athletic Association.
Saturday morning sports page. Pat Lucia, Dave Clark, 330-707-4202. Talking Jim Brown on the Saturday morning sports page. The show you're listening to, station is Western Reserve Radio. You want to get in and talk sports, 330-707-4202. And we do it at the Gessler Propane Studio here in Struthers, Ohio. The thing we were talking a lot with Jim Brown, he actually he was born in Georgia, St. Simon's Island, Georgia, raised by his grandmother, then moved to Manhasset, New York when he was 8, and he was raised then by his mother. And that's obviously right outside of New York City, where he played his high school sports. And he went to Syracuse. And he actually played basketball at Syracuse. Yep. And I think this is the part that blows me away is like when you hear at his lacrosse, I know we've mentioned this, but he averaged 11.3 points a game in basketball at Syracuse. And he made second team All-American in lacrosse. His senior year, he was first team All-American in cross. It said Brown was so dominant in lacrosse, they had to change the rules, requiring a lacrosse player to keep their stick in constant motion when carrying the ball instead of holding it close to his body. Like, this is the point, is he was a great lacrosse. He was so great. It's like, when you talk about impact of players on sports, like the kid that was drafted out of France this year. Wembanyama.
Oh, you're going to the Spurs? The one
Yeah.
that come out? Yeah, when he goes to the Spurs.
Okay.
You might as well say he's drafted by the Spurs, even
Drafted
though the
by
draft
the
they can't.
Spurs.
They're going to take him.
Yeah, he's going to go to the Spurs.
Right.
Okay, I think that's his name.
Wemby.
It's Wembanyama.
Or something like
I believe. I apologize if the pronunciation isn't 100%. They back off the break here. They're talking about he's the greatest prospect ever to come out of, into the NBA draft. Please. To me, you got to throw Lou Alcindor, Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, who won 3 NCAA titles. And his freshman year, his team destroyed the champions from UCLA.
Yeah,
Lucius Allen and Lou Alcindor back then in college. His freshman year beat the defending champion UCLA team in practice.
Yeah.
To the point where Wooden was embarrassed because it was like, oh my gosh. He beat the defending champions, destroyed them.
Yeah, I know.
They changed the rules in college basketball. You could not dunk because of Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, back then Lou Alcindor. But the point is, the players, the reality is, the other player that coming directly now, Lou Alcindor, Kareem Abdul-Jabbar played 4 years at UCLA, won 3 titles, was the MVP 3 years in a row in college basketball, and was by far the greatest, one of the greatest, if not the greatest college basketball player of all time.
Right.
The other player that came out was LeBron James.
Right.
I don't know if this kid, the young man coming out, played in France.
Right.
Is he going to be that way? I mean, the problem you have with NBA is these kids don't play in college long.
Right.
So you really don't know what you have because they're not developed.
Yeah.
Where Patrick Ewing, even Jordan played 3 years, Kareem played 4 years, but Magic played 2 years, Bird played 4 years. But these players back then, you knew, boy, these guys are really going to be good because based on they had a good resume in college.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know how good the European League is as far as where this young man played. So I don't know how great he's going to be. I don't know if he's the greatest prospect coming out because I can't compare him to Kareem and even to LeBron.
Yeah. I mean,
we knew LeBron was going to be good.
Yeah. And when you look at his work now, when you see him, you see the skill. It's not, I mean, for a guy his size, it's unbelievable.
The skill is great.
There. And then he played in leagues with grown men.
Right.
They put him in those leagues, which was good. They put him in the higher echelon France leagues that are real good, and he dominated. So you see the writing on the wall for him to be there. But I just hate when they put all that on the young man. Let him just come in.
Let him come in, right.
And do his thing. Now he's got long as he's got a good supporting cast around him. And I don't mean players. I'm talking about support system. That's what I should say.
Right.
To deal with all this. You're going to have the media going crazy. It's going to be a lot of noise. This, that, he got to hear it. As soon as he make a mistake, oh, look at him, he's not that good. Don't worry about none of that. Just come in because I can see the talent, but I hate when they do that because they heap too much on him at once. Just let him come in and play. Right. And the guy, he definitely, I can see the skills, but we have to see. I'm not going to put him above any of those guys. I'm not putting him above, Kareem, no way. I'm not putting him above Jordan, Barkley, or anybody else, until he gets there and prove it that he can do it, and that's why the thing I like about LeBron, per se, is that all these years he done played, he had a lot of hype. Jordan said this in an interview, and so did Kobe. Nobody had the stuff on them like he did when he came out of high school. Nobody. I mean, you had other guys, they talk. Nobody had this because they even put in there the chosen one.
Yeah.
And he had all this pressure, and this guy handled this. And he handled it well. And to go through 20 years of basketball and play, and I look at one of the biggest accomplishments is not the scoring title, not all this, to be in that high profile of a guy for 20 years and never have a scandal.
No, he's
in this era where you got paparazzi, you got everything around you at all time. waiting to do something, waiting to just tear you down. That's what they out there for, to tear you down. And he has
No,
to have,
LeBron. No,
so
LeBron
he's
has had
handled it well,
Yep.
and you know, and I
Yes.
pray he can get through whatever else is left and do that, and hopefully he got his kids to, you know, they can follow that footstep and that, you know, blueprint and be able to do the same thing, because it's going to be on them too.
Yeah, I
they got
kind
to
of
live up to it.
the thing and that's what I kind of feel. I feel sorry away for his kids because their expectation. I mean, you know, Bronny is, you know, going to go to USC.
Mm-hmm.
It'll be a media circus.
Oh yeah, it's going to be. And then look at the people they put there too. It's a couple of, I mean, Rodman's son is there, and I think I forgot who else. Somebody else's son is there playing.
It's going to be
crazy.
A circus.
Oh yeah,
and a microscope.
Yeah,
and I mean, the problem I mean, when LeBron broke into the NBA, you didn't have social media like you have today. Yeah, the internet was starting to come around, but it wasn't the
like it is
social
today.
media today.
Mm-hmm.
That was LeBron came in 20 years ago in 2003. So that's basically, you know, what it was then. But you didn't have the Twitter. You didn't even have, I don't even know if Facebook was around, but it was there was none of that. So there was some media, but it wasn't like it is today.
Right.
And so I think you're going to have, you know, those poor kids. I mean, they've LeBron, I don't mean poor meaning financially. I just mean mentally that, you know, the kids are just going to be, I mean, just on that microscope. And I feel sorry in a way for those kids under that microscope. Someone go, yeah, but, you know, they love this. I said, no, but they're just not going to be able to do anything without having somebody, he's not going to be like his dad. I mean, Bronny, well, he's good, but he's not, you know, give me a break.
And I really think the one that's going to really get is Bryce. Because he's already, they look at him as being better than either one, because at his stage level now, it's ridiculous what he's doing.
Right.
And he's already 6'6".
Right.
And I think he just turned 15.
Yeah, he just turned, and he's going to a different high school.
Yeah.
He's not going to go to the Sierra Canyon.
Right. He's transferring from that.
He's going through a different high school. Yeah. So, I mean, we'll see how LeBron's sons do. I think you're right. The word is Bryce looks like the one who's going to have potentially mirror maybe his father, but it's hard to say at this point.
Yeah. Yeah.
And Bronny could be a good player, but he may not be as good as LeBron. I mean, you know, it's so hard.
Yeah.
Those two young men, just go out and play, and hopefully the media doesn't, you know, drive them crazy. But that's not going to happen.
They're looking to eat guys alive. That's what they love to do.
And like I said, USC, it's going to be an absolute. If Rodman's son's down there, it's going to be a media circus.
Yeah. His son is there, transferred there. So, yeah, I forgot it. I know it's two other sons. I know it's Bill Bellamy, who's an actor and comedian.
Right.
His son is playing, and they say he is something else. And then they got I forgot another NBA player's son is playing on that team. So,
well, USC looks like it's going to be a fairly loaded team. The only question is going to be is, you know, how long do the kids stay, and when do they go to the NBA? Does LeBron's son be a one and done?
Yeah,
and how good is he? And that seems to be so. Everybody's waiting to see him play, and USC will probably be on TV more.
Oh yeah, you gonna see him.
It just so you get an idea of money. I know we get to the NFL, but the $120 million that the NFL is going to get for doing the one wild card game on NBC Peacock came out this week. So for everybody out there to think that, you know, what's driving the boat, follow the money. And always the money.
Now that game will not be on your regular NBC.
No, it's not going to be on. You have to buy NBC Peacock to get the wild card game. 120 million is what NBC Peacock ponied up for that game.
So what's going to happen now if you have that app Peacock, which I have had and put it on, it wasn't costing anything.
Well,
but it's going to with this added
$4.99 a month.
Yeah, but it used to be free. You
it was
click
free.
Now you can. It's things that you pay for on there, but you can watch movies, regular shows. But that's going to change now.
Yeah, right.
They have to.
Well, they got
they're
to
pulling up that money, so
they got to get where they got to get the money from.
Now, the thing about it, we love cutting the cord, which we talk about cable. That was a good thing, but soon, if it keeps going the way it's going, you got so many apps, and they split these things up that you can't get something that's going to have everything. You got to get this one, this one, this one. Before you know it, that bill will be just like it was with the cable. If they don't watch it. So
Well, yeah, and that's your whole problem. I mean, that's where you're going, and then YouTube has got the NFC package.
Yeah, the NFL package, and I don't get it because I used to back in the day with DirecTV at first, and then I think after a couple years I got it. I said, wait a minute, I can't watch all these games. Right. There's no way I can watch every single game.
You can't.
So why am I paying this money?
Well, and it's 200. What did we? I forget what we talked
back
about.
then or
no,
now.
Now it's
I think I got a special at $249 or something like that.
And if you want Red Zone with it, it's another 40. It's 280. I think it's 289 with Red Zone, 249 without Red Zone. I got to have Red Zone. So I guess we're debating about getting that because
the whole package.
The whole package, get it all. And then I could watch the Giants.
Yeah.
My wife can watch the Steelers when they're not on locally.
Right.
And we got it covered. And then my wife goes, well, do you need Red Zone? I go, oh, yeah. I still need Red Zone.
Right.
Because what I will do is I could watch Red Zone on my tablet and I'll have the Giants on the main TV, but I'll be watching Red Zone on the tablet.
And that's the only thing. And it may come. They was talking about on the NFL Network that maybe as time go, they're going to go which is going to get complicated, but it may, where like you like the Giants. Instead of having the entire NFL package, you can buy just the Giants games only.
Yeah, that makes sense.
And then you can just watch your team because you're buying this entire package.
Yeah.
And you can't watch all those games.
No, you can't watch.
But you can see but really you getting it because you want to see your team.
Exactly. That's the only reason why we're getting it.
Because I like several teams. So
me too.
So I watch. It's several teams. I would love to be able to watch every game they play. So, it's just buying that package.
That's a lot of money. Yeah, that's the thing is I'm debating it, but the thing I'm wondering is I might watch because Rodgers being with the Jets now. I'm going to want to watch those Jet games if they're not on main TV or if the Giants. So I'm going to be going.
Oh, it's interesting stuff.
Yeah, I'll be going crazy with it.
Interesting season.
This will be this season coming up in the NFL is going to be just unbelievable.
I really believe that.
It's just going to be crazy. Getting to the NBA playoffs too. I know I kind of started out this way and went off rails, but we had to get to Jim Brown. Had to talk about Jim Brown, the greatest player of all time,
right?
By far.
Yep.
Football player. Again, if you were going to put, we'll work on it. But if you were going to put the Mount Rushmore,
he's on there,
of great players of all time, you got to put Jim Brown, Babe Ruth, and then after that, I've got to think, okay, who else would fit in that Mount Rushmore? But Jim Brown and Babe Ruth, to me, would be right up there. And then after that, you start to figure, okay, get your other sports. Who would fit in? I guess you have your basketball. Then you have to, I guess, Jordan could be your basketball player. And then after that, you have to figure out, or some people may argue LeBron over Jordan, but I would go Ruth, Brown, and Jordan. And then after that, then I'd have to think, okay, because that covers the three major sports.
Right.
And then the only other question would be what other, you could still get another sport in there for baseball or one of those other sports. But the ones that the three people on my Mount Rushmore are definitely Ruth, Jim Brown, and Michael Jordan. And then after that,
you had to pick the other sports like tennis or boxing.
Right.
Would it be Muhammad Ali on there?
Well, I think boxing? There you go. I think you've said it. I think you would put Ali for boxing on that Mount Rushmore. And then obviously but Jim Brown and Ali for their civil rights are basically on that too. I mean, they bring that to a whole different level. What they did, what Jim Brown did for civil rights is just unbelievable, and what he did for the community. As far as
he had a lot of guys behind him back then. With Russell was in
yeah, Bill Russell.
Arthur Ashe,
you see Arthur Ashe.
All of them was in.
You're
that
getting all that.
then.
Does Bill Russell belong on that Mount Rushmore? 11 titles in 13 years. I mean. I don't think we'll ever see he changed the game, brought it to a level. I mean, you get into Chamberlain, what he did. I mean, you could get into this. We could have a 2-hour show, but sliding back to the NBA situation, I opened up the show talking about the Miami Heat beating the Celtics last night, 111-105. Now the question is, can Boston win a game? They're going to go back.
Now it's tougher now. You got 2 games you lost, but you lost them on your home court.
Right.
This scenario doesn't look good for Boston to get out of the East. It looked like this is Miami for sure. Now, can they win a game? I think they can win a game. I think they may even win 2. But they one, I think they can get. Right now, when you get taken care of in your building, and now you got to go. See, Miami, one thing about them, they don't have all the greatest players on the team, but they play together, and they're well coached.
He's got four
used to think they're not that good. That guy's a great coach. He learned from Riley. He is one.
He may be the best coach I think he's the best coach in the NBA.
That's unbelievable. It's not that they're bums. They're good, but the way he gets them to play.
4 undrafted players on that team and contributing.
Big.
And Tyler Hero, their guard is out. Their shooting guard is out with the broken wrist. So they even have their best scorer maybe on the team.
And they're doing this.
And they are actually, again, they took Milwaukee in 5, the number 1 seed. They took the Knicks 6 games, the numbers 5 seed, and now they're playing the number 2 seed Boston. And it looks like they could sweep the number 2 seed. They have the 2 games down in Miami, and just the way that I had that game last night, and I've been watching Miami play. I saw how they beat the Knicks. I saw how they beat Milwaukee, and that game number 2, everybody figured, well, Boston will win this. I said, no, be careful, Milwaukee, because the Knicks were so lucky to win game 2 at Madison Square Garden. They had to. That was a fight on their hands, and I had a feeling Miami could win that game, and sure enough, they came back in that 4th quarter and pulled that game out. I think Boston's done. I don't see Boston winning this series.
Well, that panel, the TNT panel, Shaq was adamant about Miami winning it.
Yeah.
Kenny and Charles was like, they don't have a chance. And he said, I'm telling you, these guys are well coached. They play hard together. And you got guys that play in big moments. And he said, then you got the others. He loves to say that. That's Shaq's favorite saying, the others. Yeah. And he said, these guys will give them a series. He said, I think I'm picking them. And they was just on him about it. And so far, he's halfway there. Well, the Lakers situation is different because I think you lost at Denver, but you showed you can come back. Both games, you put them on the cusp of that. You got to go home. Can't lose confidence. You got to go home and play.
Right. I mean, that's tonight on ABC, the 8:30 game.
This is big right here.
This will be big because the Lakers do have to win this one tonight.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, they have to.
They can't go down 0-3 because no team in the NBA has ever come back from 0-3.
Right.
And the way Denver is playing now, especially Murray, is just unbelievable, playing lights out. He had that inner ear infection, which can be just disabling. And he came back and he played. They scored when they hit all those 3-pointers in game number 2, and they roared back from being down like that. Then they just put the Lakers. I thought the Lakers were going to actually come back and win that.
Yeah, almost. I'll tell you.
I was surprised that they just fell short, but Denver had, I think, built such a lead. You could see the Joker had really not a lot left in the tank, but he's still a great distributor. he kind of reminds me of a Bill Walton type of player where he's a great distributor, can score, rebound, he does everything on the court. And he might be the best player right now in the game, one of the best, you can argue. I'm not sure who else is up quite on his level. You could see Anthony Davis at time looks very good, but then he kind of falls back.
Right.
I think LeBron, the only thing you could see with LeBron, I think the age is catching up with him a little bit in these playoffs.
Right.
But he's 38. So, but they are getting great play from the other players on that team. The Laker team, I think Pelinka should be the NBA Executive of the Year. What he pulled off at the trade deadline and how he assembled that team real quick on the fly, sort of to speak, to put that team together with the big trades that he did right at trade deadline, turn that team around.
Yep.
The only question is, I don't know if they're going to be able to come back. Now, I think they're going to have to win all their games on their home court.
Yeah,
the Lakers will have
to make it a 3-game series.
They're going to have to try to do that and then maybe win Game 7 or Game 5 in Denver, which you could do. Game 7s are really hard to win on the road.
Right.
So I think if the Lakers could get one, I think they could have to try to get the Game 5 in Denver. But it'll be interesting. Denver's going to be a tough out because they are a number 1 seed.
Yep.
Charles Barkley said, hey, this has been the best team all year. I've been saying it, and they certainly play it. So tonight will be the night. Can the Lakers get back into the series? Or if they lose tonight, and obviously then it's just going to be a debate. Does it go 4 or 5 games?
Yeah.
Because I don't think the Lakers can come back from down 3-0.
No.
Just based Denver. And Denver, it might be the best team. But right now, part of me, not trying to look ahead, but we always do anyway, is you're looking at a Denver-Miami potential finals. I know people are like upset because it's not Boston-LA.
Oh, yeah.
The cliche.
For ratings, they would love
the ratings, they love it. And you have the 2 teams are tied for the most NBA titles at 17.
Right.
So people would be like, okay, that would be an unbelievable matchup. But I don't think Boston's getting there. LA, right now, I would say LA might have a better chance of getting there than Boston. But if LA loses tonight, they're not getting there.
Right.
Boston, I don't know if Boston is going to come back in this series.
Yeah, I don't know.
I just watched them play, but they've been doing that all year. Boston's been they get sloppy. They let teams back in the game. They did Philly. They fell asleep and let Philly win a couple games. And now they got caught with Miami. And Miami, I'm not surprised Miami did that. I'm really not.
Because the team is mentally tough. All his teams has been like that. Mental toughness. They're not just a good basketball. I mean, even back to the LeBron and Wade, they had great players then, but they still was mentally tough too. So now they're at a different, I think they're more mentally tough now than they was back then.
They are.
You know, because
they're less
LeBron
talented now.
Yeah,
than they
less
are back
talented,
then.
but more mentally tough.
I actually think they play better as a team now than they did then.
Yeah.
Because you had the great superstars. You had Bosh, Wade, and LeBron. And then he put some good team players, Battier, and a few other great players around him.
Yep.
Right. But this team, you don't have superstars per se. Butler is about the only one.
Right.
But he's a tough.
Yeah,
he's in a whole different
type,
level of tough. He's in a different world there.
Right.
Butler brings it to a different level. And don't, like Shaq said, don't poke the bear. When they were talking trash to Butler, don't get him started, because if you think you're going to get mentally tough Butler, you're going to come out on the short end.
Yeah.
And you're seeing that Butler just is a whole different player.
Yep.
When it comes to mental toughness.
Yep.
Yeah, he's the type of guy that if you're in the proverbial foxhole, you want him on your team.
Yeah.
Butler's the kind of guy you want on your team, man.
Right.
Because he's going to get you through.
Yeah. Yep.
He's just a mentally tough guy, man, and he's gonna. Like I said, I could be dead wrong. I usually am, but I don't know if the Celtics get a game in this series.
Yeah, man, that's gonna be something. Tomorrow, game 3 for them.
Right. Tomorrow will be game 3 for the Celtics in Miami. Maybe the Celtics could get a game off.
Yeah.
But the way
Well,
Miami's
they
playing,
have to get
yeah,
one.
they don't. Yeah, the Celtics are really the back against the wall, because you just can't losing the first 2. The only team that remotely comes to my mind that lost the first two and won, 1996 Yankees, lost the 2 games in Yankee Stadium, won 4 straight over Atlanta. Baseball. I got to look the other up.
Yep.
Saturday morning sports page. Timeout.
You're listening to Western Reserve Radio, WRDB, The Scourge, a part of the Sports Map Radio Network.
Western Reserve Radio is the Valley's online source for sports talk and local live events. Tune in and be a part of their live weekly shows, as well as all of the hard-hitting action of Youngstown Phantoms hockey, high school football, and the GDFL. Find them at westernreserveradio.com. Tune in and the Live 365 app to be a part of the area's sports conversation. Be sure to visit them on Facebook at Western Reserve Radio and on Twitter at WR_radio.
Driving has a rhythm all its own. Don't wreck it with a text. Before you get behind the wheel, silence your phone. Or better yet, designate a texter. For more text-free driving tips, visit stoptextstoprex.org. Brought to you by the Ad Council and the National Highway Traffic Safety Administration.
In the small town of Elmira, New York, a boy was born into an all-American family. The odds of him achieving his dream in the fashion industry? 1 in 23 million. The odds of having a child diagnosed with autism? 1 in 68. I am Tommy Hilfiger, and my family is affected by autism. Learn more at autismspeaks.org/signs. Brought to you by Autism Speaks and the Ad Council.
Mill Creek Golf Course is the Valley's leader for golfing fun with a practice range, short game area, and hole 55 bar and grill all on site. Mill Creek Golf Course features a friendly PGA professional staff available for instruction, along with 36 challenging holes designed by the legendary Donald Ross. Don't forget family fun night golf on Fridays and Saturdays for just $25. For details and tee times, call 330-740-7112 or go online to millcreekmetroparks.org.
Saturday morning sports page, Pat Lucia, Dave Clark coming back at you, 330-707-4202. Talking sports as always on Western Reserve Radio here at the Gessler Propane Studios. So a lot to talk about getting into the NBA. Obviously, the first hour, first 2 quarters of the show talked about the greatest football player in our eyes is Jim Brown. We are even assembling the Mount Rushmore of greatest pro players.
Yep.
I guess when you break it down, at least I've got Ruth, Jim Brown, Michael Jordan, and Muhammad Ali. Aren't there 5 on there? So I guess there should be one more player. I got to figure this out. We got to figure out one more player, right? Because there's 5 faces up there on Mount Rushmore.
Oh, yeah.
So we
another sport. I don't know. Would you
I
go
don't
to
know.
golf, tennis?
I don't know. Yeah, that would be, I don't know. That's a great question. Or could it be another player in one of those other sports? I don't
Right.
know. And that's something we can work on in future.
Yeah.
They're the 4 that at least come up.
You know, would
in
they
my
want to
mind.
say hockey and put Gretzky up there or something like that?
Yeah,
I don't know.
you could. Or do you do tennis? Oh, man, that could be.
And they could break a barrier and put Serena on there as a.
Could be Serena.
They could. And she would break a barrier because she'd be a woman on the Mount Rushmore.
well,
with,
yeah.
You know?
Yeah,
So,
I mean, I could, you know.
Good. That'd really break
That
a
would
barrier.
break up the barrier. But, I mean, again, it's the kind of thing I could understand it. I mean, I could see Serena being in there.
Yeah.
Because, I mean, just the players, just, yeah. I mean, like I said, when you break it down, But the four ones, I think, really, Jim Brown, Babe, Jordan, and Muhammad Ali.
Yep.
And then obviously what Muhammad Ali did for social justice and Jim Brown is totally off the charts.
Right.
They were almost to themselves a whole different plateau there.
Yeah.
Of greatness.
Yeah, because they did other things outside
Jim Brown
of there.
did a lot of, as far as with young black men, he had like trying to get them on the right path.
Yeah.
And just, he was on in talking and interviewing. He's just a great man on top of it.
Yeah.
I always thought he was a great actor too.
Yeah.
I still like those movies, The Split, The Dirty Dozen, Tick, Tick, Tick. And he was in Ice Station Zebra. That was the other one that I really liked.
Yeah.
Yeah. It was an old Alistair MacLean book, and it was a great book. Brown, Ernest Borgnine. I think Rock Hudson was in that movie too.
Ernest Borgnine.
Yeah.
My God.
Gosh. Yeah.
I used to like that guy.
Oh, me too. McHale's Navy.
Yep, that's him.
As we digress.
Yeah. I'm sure nobody's heard of that.
No. Ice Station Zebra. And Tick, Tick, Tick in the
McHale's
Split.
Navy.
McHale's Navy. Yeah, it's still, to this day, it blows my mind. The only thing that really blows my mind with Jim Brown is how Art Modell totally mishandled it.
Yeah, well, he just,
like,
he got his
how did you have the great, and everybody knew then he was a great player. It wasn't like, let me get this straight now. People think, because of time. No, Jim Brown hasn't gotten better with time. Jim Brown was an absolutely great football player then, and everybody knew it back then.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean,
it wasn't like, people get carried away, and I understand you get nostalgia, buries it, and people start making somebody greater than they really were.
Yeah, no.
I understand all that. That's not the case with Jim Brown now. Jim Brown was an absolutely fantastic football player back in the day, and everybody knew it.
Yeah.
And those teams were afraid of him. I don't care. There were defensive backs, that when you played the Browns and you had to tackle Jim Brown, you were afraid. I'm sure there were, because he said, you got a guy 235, 6'2" that could run and just power like no unbelievable power. And you didn't want to tackle that man, because the defensive backs were maybe 175, back 160, and you did not want to try to. No.
Right.
And you were one-on-one with Jim Brown. You were just maybe praying to maybe take out his ankle and pray that he didn't just roll over you and put you in a hospital bed.
Well, one thing that was consistent for back then, we know that wasn't, they didn't build Jim Brown out to be this great player. He was.
But he was.
But then Art Modell, on the other hand, now he did do some other great things, but he made idiotic decisions. And that was made up because any guy to get rid of Paul Brown and get him out of the way, somebody that formulated the Cleveland Browns.
He actually was that's true.
And you get him and discarded him like yesterday's trash, and he had to go and get a Cincinnati Bengal team together. But I mean, you get rid of Paul Brown because I don't want to get out. Jim Brown. And then on top of that, the coup de grace, we move out of Cleveland.
And you move the team.
So this guy made idiotic decisions for quite some time. So, one thing I will say about Art Modell, he was consistent.
Yeah, he was.
He was a consistent idiot.
Yeah.
So
I'd say,
he
was.
Type of things he did, I mean, some of the things you did see. Now, did I agree with him moving? No. Did I agree with his comments about this makes no sense, we can't get a new stadium in Cleveland? I agree with him that why can't they have a new stadium? And they gave him, from, as they say, hell and back. They wouldn't give him no leeway to get a new stadium, and that's why he left. But, it might have been other avenues he could have took to find out, did he have to go all the way to that measure and take one of the most storied franchise and shut it down and move it somewhere else? I mean, he could have did some other things. But I did not understand the city of Cleveland not wanting to chip in on that and all those things that he went through. Mayor White, I think it was back then.
Right, Mayor White was
and
the
it was
mayor.
going through all kinds of stuff. And it didn't make any sense, that part.
Well, what's funny is then they ultimately got the stadium, though.
That's why I said, Was it some other avenues that could have been explored?
Was it
whoever
bought it? Was it Lerner that bought it? Who
Yeah.
bought? Yeah. Then he had the team, and then they got the stadium.
Yeah.
Like,
so it made me think, was it something against Art Modell? Maybe
I would
it
have
was.
to really research and really. I know
They might have something against Art.
It could.
He did get rid of Paul Brown, and he did get rid of Jim Brown, basically.
The thing that got me with Modell is you bring up the other points with Paul Brown and then the whole mess with Cleveland and leaving, but you had then, and you knew it, you had the greatest running back ever to play the game then, and you knew he was the greatest running back. Nobody was even disputing that back then.
Right.
And you got into a dispute over money, and I believe the money was stupid. It's like $29,000 is what I believe he was getting paid, and he wanted a raise.
Yeah.
And then you actually said, well, if you don't show up for camp, I'm going to fine you because he had the movie he was doing. He wanted to come in late. The guy was playing 9 years. He didn't need training camp. Jim Brown did not need training. And Art Modell got that, it's me, I'm your boss, and you're doing this or else. And it's almost like you forced the greatest player to retire at the age of 29. You knew and I knew Jim Brown had minimum 2 to 3 years, years left. I mean, he was only 29.
Yeah, I thought he could play, like I said, 4 to 5, but
At
2
least,
to 3
at least,
top echelon years.
Right.
I
mean, that's the part that, to me, if you want to break down Art Modell, I think one of the worst thing he ever did, among the things you've already stated, but I think the number one was Jim Brown.
Yeah.
Paul Brown's right up there, but I think Jim Brown, because
that was it right there.
Right.
It was like when you did Paul Brown, it was like they were disgusted, but they got back on the ship, as they say.
You still, because you had the players.
Yeah, but then
you had the greatest NFL player of all time, even then, because people knew Jim Brown was the greatest player of all time. Nobody ever disputed it. And you looked at Jim Brown and said, here I have the greatest player. All I needed to do is, okay, yeah, Jim, go do your movie. We'll give you a raise. I'm going to get you a new contract. Go do your movie. And you don't think any of the players would? I mean, at the end, his teammates would be like, "Yeah, he's Jim Brown. Of course he can do that." Let him go do it. Let him come in a little late this year. He's, I would be like, yeah, okay, Jim, go ahead. And you know what? When you get back, we're going to give you a raise. We're going to get you more money. We're going to give you a new contract. Give him $100,000 a year. Set the precedent there. Do something. Give the guy a lot of money. He still has. You want him on the field, right? No. You start to fine him. You're going to fine Jim Brown for showing up late for camp because he's doing a movie. So then you just said, you just forced the greatest player of all time out of the league.
This is a guy that made some other crazy.
Right.
Yeah, he made a lot of crazy decisions. People don't understand the talent he had at Cleveland.
Right.
There was a great player named Bobby Mitchell.
Yes,
with Jim Brown.
Bobby Mitchell.
And he let Bobby Mitchell go to the Redskins.
Gave him away. Right.
Gave him away.
He was an unbelievable. Bobby Mitchell was a great player.
You gave him away. So, I mean, and then at that time when Jim Brown did not come into camp, you had a young Paul Warfield who you just had drafted, I think the year before.
Right, 64.
Right? They drafted him in 64, I believe. And you bring him in, and now you're going to see. Now, this is going to make. Now, I'm just looking at something. I don't know if this went through Paul Warfield's mind, but when he seen how Art Modell handled Jim Brown, who he said he came in and admired, and then seen that it wasn't just being enamored by a guy that just happened to have things heaped on him. He watched his work ethic. And what he did, he said, I see why this guy is great. So he wanted to follow that. Then you get a guy that doesn't allow him to come in.
No.
Make him retire. That when the time came when Paul Warfield also wanted a little bit of raise, they didn't want to do it. So out the door he goes.
To Miami.
He wins. He's on the undefeated team. He wins the Super Bowl. You get rid of another great player.
He won 2 Super Bowls.
Yeah, he won 2.
Actually, Paul did.
And it's unbelievable that happened, and I was thinking in this whole conversation, he did not bring up the name Art Modell, Paul Warfield in this thing. And I just think these guys have a thing against that, what he did back then, because I mean the Browns were so fortunate in so many things of having these type of players, things that worked out their way. And
the thing is, the frustrating part with that, it seemed that Modell he had the people with the ability to draft and scout great talent, but then he mismanaged it. He treated the players, like I said, to this day, I read that, I heard that about Jim Brown, and I still can't believe that, if Jim Brown was like with the New York Giants and the Maras would have done anything. They would have kept him. They would have, I'm sure they would have.
Yeah.
They would have said, okay, yeah, you want to do your movies? That's cool. We'll work it out. We'll get you the contract, And you think the players would be like, oh, Jim Brown's taking off spring training camp. They'd be mad at him. Are you kidding me? You'd be like, no, he's Jim Brown. He's the greatest.
And if you remember back then, they were saying things about maybe trade him. If you can't trade him to the Rams, since he wants to do movies, trade him to the Rams. Now he'll be on a team with
Roman Gabriel, and then he had a great defense, the fearsome foursome.
You think he wouldn't have played for the Rams? I think he would have.
Oh, he would have.
He'd be right in the setting,
right in L.A.
In L.A., he wants to act perfect for him. But Art Modell was inclined of not allowing this guy to go anywhere.
No,
and you either come and do what I say, which was back in them times was not a good. Especially the type of bad that Jim Brown was. He was saying the wrong things.
Right. Yeah, I mean,
you're saying the wrong things. This guy said.
One thing you needed to understand: you're not going to ever tell if you talk, Jim Brown. We don't know him, but you have interviewed and you've listened to him talk. He's not the type of man you're telling him what he's going to do.
Right.
Jim Brown knows what he's going to do.
Yeah.
And he's going to just do it, and that's it. You hear him talk, and if Jim Brown was probably one of the most intimidating players too, on top of being the greatest player, he might be the most intimidating player of all time, just with that scowl and that look. And then, like you said, he played that getting up slow, dragging back to the huddle, hands on the hips, thinking, oh, this guy's shot. And then the next play, boom, you just get run over by a Mack truck. Jim Brown just hit me, and I didn't get that license plate because I'm just laying down. I'm looking up at the sun and I'm looking at the blue sky, and I said, what hit me?
Right.
Oh, it was Jim Brown. Jim Brown ran me over. Many people were run over by Jim Brown, but that's the whole point, is that's what always blew me away with this whole thing, how he ended it with the Browns. And he was only 29. That's the part.
Yeah, that's the part that gets you.
It gets you you had the greatest player of all time and he had over 12,000 yards rushing. And you think if he would have played 3 more years and put 1,500 yards up, which is probably low, but let's just say he does 15, that's 45, say 5,000 yards. He would have had over 17,000 yards in 12 years.
Right.
He had 9 years. He had over 12,000 yards, well over 1,000 a year.
Yeah.
And people need to understand the game back then was a grind running game, and they loaded the box, and running backs just got absolutely destroyed back then.
Yeah. Yeah.
So,
and I really to this day believe, he's never said it, but Barry Sanders, I believe he retired right at that same amount of years, I think it was, and said, or he was that age, 29, I believe.
He was.
And he's never said it, but he kept asking the Detroit Lions, show that you want to win, get certain players. They would get rid of people, different people they had, and he was just tired of it. He was done. And that was another guy at the prime of his career, and he stopped. It just shocked me. I always thought Barry Sanders was going to come back, maybe a year, and then he was done.
Barry Sanders, I believe, from what I can gather, he was with the Detroit Lions again from 1989 to 1998. So that's 10 years.
10 years.
And I believe it looks like he was, from looking at this, I believe he was 30 years old when he retired. because he was
He
born.
had a lot left in the tank.
He was born in July 16th of 1968. He retired in 1998 after the 98 season. So he was 30.
What was his last? Did it show his stats for his last year in the league?
Yes, it looks. Oh, that's his college. Got his college. Barry Sanders is just off the charts. He's another great, great player. Yeah, I'd laugh. Barry Sanders retired after 1998. He played in 16 games. He had 1,491 yards. The year before, in 1997, he had 2,053 yards. The year before he retired, he averaged 6.1 yards a carry. He averaged 128 yards a game. 2,053 yards. That was in 1997. His last year, he played all 60 games. That's the other thing. Don't even get me started about the players back there. They played. Jim Brown, these guys all played. Jim Brown, I don't know if I don't think Jim Brown missed a game. I looked it up. I don't think he ever did.
Yeah.
Barry Sanders played in 16 games his last year, and he basically had 1,491 yards. He averaged 4.3 a carry. So maybe you could make an argument, he's starting to trend down. Yeah, because the season before he had one of maybe the greatest seasons of all time, 2,053 yards. And he was only 30 years old when he retired, which and I know Barry Sanders, and he never had a great line to run behind. Right. We talked about that at length, but also the fact is, what could he have done?
Right. I think now
in another year, to give him two more years.
He played all his games, and
he played.
Walter Payton missed one because what was it? Something happened? It wasn't an injury. Walter Payton missed one game in his entire 14-year career, and I forgot. It might have been early in his career, like when did he come in 76 or somewhere in there?
Yeah, Walter Payton.
Maybe 74. I don't know.
He was
somewhere in there.
Walter Payton rookie year was 1975.
Okay.
He was 22 years old. He was 1975 to 1987. So that's 13 years.
13, okay.
And Walter Payton, when you look at his numbers, again, another unbelievable player. Walter Payton, because 87 was strike year. He only played 12 games. In 1982 was 9. You're right. He played in every game, but his first year he only played 13 games his rookie year of the 14.
Right.
Then after that, he played in every game. He played 9 games in 82 because it was a strike year. And in 12 games in 87, which was his last year, that was a strike year.
Yep.
So he played in every game. The only year he didn't play in every game was his rookie year.
And see, the reason I look up to guys like that, Payton, Sanders, they were on teams that, now even though Detroit had a little bit more weaponry with Herman Moore and
he had some better out. Yeah,
he had some outside receivers there, that was there. But when you played the Bears, it was Walter Payton, and you got to get him, and they didn't get him.
Yeah, and they never had. When you look at Bears history, they never really had great quarterbacks.
No.
I mean, Jim McMahon might have been the best quarterback Payton ever played with. And that was at the kind of the tail end of the career.
Right.
But, I mean, he had Bob Avellini and a few of those other guys, man. And,
I still remember Bob Avellini.
I mean,
and his head knocked off.
Yeah.
Holding the ball
too long and just get, and those Bear teams had nothing. And Walter Payton was it. And like you said, he was the guy getting the ball and everybody knew it.
Right.
And it was almost like, okay, you couldn't stop him. And he would punish the player that would try to hit him. He would put his head down. I remember watching him play. And some guy would come at him, and Walter Payton would use the stiff arm, or Payton would bury his head right in that guy's chest.
Yep.
And, man, that had to hurt. because Walter Payton was what, 5'9", 5'10", 210 pounds of pure dynamite muscle, and he would just hurt.
And believe me, that's true, because I went to a Bears-Browns game, and we got there good and early, about 11 something. And they out there warming up, and this guy was able to get down right there at the thing and see him at the ground level. That looked like somebody chiseled out of rock. I'm serious. That guy was put together. That was pure lean muscle.
One of the greatest, if you ever watch, I guess I can call it kind of a video, it was a highlight. It's Carly Simon did that song, Nobody Does It Better, and they put it to Walter Payton. And you can hear she's singing that song, and Walter Payton's are showing highlights of him running. Where you talk about apropos, that song just fit Walter Payton. Nobody does it better. And I just remember watching that highlight. They had that song going, and I was like going, I was watching that, and you're just watching Walter Payton blowing through people, running over, running away, just inflicting pain.
That's why, that was one of Jim Brown's guys. He loved Walter
because that was Jim Brown.
Yeah.
Well, he's a slighter, smaller version.
Yep.
But it was still that inflecting. Kind of Jim Brown, Walter Payton, and Barry Sanders to some degree would inflict pain on the person trying to tackle them. Right. Significant pain.
Yeah. That's what he said. He said Payton. I remember when he's having a big conversation with Franco Harris. Remember
because Franco would go out of bounds.
Yeah, he said, you go out of bounds. He said, now, Walter, that's my guy, because he doesn't look to go out of bounds. He's looking for who is trying to take him out, and he's going to take him out first.
But he would, too. Yeah. Walter Payton would. I just remember him burying his helmet in that guy's chest. Mm-hmm. And I mean, just, back then, you're not supposed to do this now, helmet. But Walter Payton, if he didn't stiff arm, like I said, man, he would run around, and those guys would come in after him. They'd come, Walter Payton would lower that head and hit those guys and drive them. I mean, they took him down, or sometimes they did not take him down.
Yep.
But that guy got up, and he was like, man, what hit me?
Right. Yep. They used to call him a dynamo. That's
he was. But getting back, Sanders, again, another great player of all time. Barry Sanders never had the greatest team around him, but he just unbelievable. He had 16,000 in from that. I'm sorry, that's Walter Payton. Walter Payton played from 1997. I'm sorry, 1975 to 1987. Mm-hmm. And he played in 190 games. And the only year he missed one game was his rookie year. Probably because he was a rookie and they didn't play him right away.
Yeah, I guess that was it. Maybe the first game.
It was like the first game. Now, his rookie year, he only had 697 yards. Mm-hmm. So he's just kind of figuring it out, sort of.
He was a kick returner, too, at that time when he first came in the league.
And then the next season, 1976, when he played in all 14 games, that's when he became the Walter Payton. Oh, yeah, this guy's the deal. He had 1,390 yards, 4.5 a carry, 13 touchdowns. Then he became the superstar in 76. And then on, he just, cranked out the yards. He had actually 1,000 yards every season except for the 2 strike years that he did not. So he had the 2 strike years. He had 596 yards in 82, and then he only had 533 in 87, and he retired. But they were both strike years, and they didn't play all the games.
Right.
But in his day, getting into great running backs, we've just talked, obviously, with the passing of Jim Brown, then it opens up, let's get other...
It automatically comes to that.
Right. You start to open up the door to what were the other great running backs of all time. And you really, when you start breaking down great running backs of all time, you almost say, I'm not big on lists, but you really got to say Brown, Walter Payton, Barry Sanders. You got top 5. That's got to be 3 of the top 5.
Oh, yeah, that's 3 top.
Brown's still, in my eyes, the best. Then you can break down this, where does Walter Payton fit in? And Barry Sanders fit in.
Yep.
Do they go 2 and 3? Is Barry better than Walter or Walter better than Barry? I don't know.
Yeah. Yeah, and I probably because of his elusiveness and Barry Sanders making
Maybe
you look
Sanders
like a stupid.
Well, yeah, and Barry Sanders, that's true. He never had a line to run behind,
Right.
but you had better wide receivers and maybe slightly a better quarterback. Peyton had a better line, but no quarterback.
Right.
So it's hard to get compared.
Yeah, but those are the guys. I mean, and then I'm probably gonna slide Simpson in there.
Well, OJ too.
Yeah.
You got to give. Yeah. He's still. Yeah, he could be top 5. Was he number? Yeah, that's true.
Right. It's hard.
It's Saturday Morning Sports Page after timeout after this.
Hey, let me ask you something. Would you seat your 3-year-old child on a windowsill? Would you seat them beside a lit fireplace or by the deep end of a pool? One last question. Would you seat your child in a car seat that's not correct for them? Car crashes are a leading killer of children ages 1 to 13. Secure their future. Seat them in the correct car seat. For more information, visit safercar.gov/the right seat. A message from the National Highway Traffic Safety Administration and the Ad Council.
Mill Creek Golf Course has been the Valley's leader for golfing fun since 1928. It features 36 challenging holes designed by the legendary Donald Ross and was voted a top 30 municipal facility by Golf Week in 2012. The Mill Creek Golf Shop is a certified Callaway Golf custom fitting center and is stocked with your favorite golf apparel and accessories. Mill Creek Golf Course is now booking tee times for this year's golf season. Please call us at 330-740-7112 or online at millcreekmetroparks.org.
Welcome to Calvin's Barbershop.
You all gotta see this.
I don't even want to know what you're looking at on that phone.
Well, you should. I was learning about the dangers of high blood pressure and that we need to get ours checked regularly. High blood pressure can increase the risk of heart attack or stroke, but this text program can help keep it at a healthy range. Just text Barbershop to 97779 to sign up.
I'll get right on it as soon as I'm done with this baby panda video.
Text Barbershop to 97779. A message from the American Heart Association and the Ad Council.
Sherman Gillums Jr., Paralyzed Veterans of America.
For more than 70 years, Paralyzed Veterans of America has helped hundreds of thousands of veterans get all the benefits they've earned.
Al Kovac Jr., Paralyzed Veterans of America.
We provide one-on-one support tailored to your individual needs, including healthcare advocacy, benefit support, and career assistance.
For more information, call 1-800-424-8200 or visit pva.org. A public service of Paralyzed Veterans of America.
Saturday Morning Sports Page, Pat Lucia, Dave Clark, 330-707-4202. We're talking about great running backs of all time. We brought, obviously, with the unfortunate passing of Jim Brown, my eye still the greatest. He belongs on the Mount Rushmore of running backs by far. I think the Mount Rushmore, I'll go one better, the Mount Rushmore of greatest players in any sport of all time. I think we've got Ruth, the Babe, Jim Brown, Michael Jordan, Muhammad Ali. And then I'm not sure about the fifth spot yet.
Yeah.
Have to
be determined.
Got to mull it over. But they're there are at least 4 of the greatest players of all time, period. I mean, I think, it's too bad Bo Jackson was hurt.
I know.
Because if Bo Jackson was not hurt, I think you could make the argument that he would be up there is the Mount Rushmore of all time.
One of my favorite guys I really...
Oh, there's only... I'm sorry.
It's only 4 in Rush.
I think there's only 4. Oh, yeah. Yeah, there's this thing. There's only 4 up there. My bad. I better brush up on history. I thought there was a 5th. But there's a little bit of an article they're talking about if they were to put a 5th face up there, who would it be?
Okay.
So.
Yeah. I mean, you wonder.
You do wonder, but I guess if I was going to do the Mount Rushmore, I guess I've already got that then.
Yeah.
So I've got the 4 guys: Ruth, Jim Brown. Then you've got obviously Michael Jordan and Ali.
Well, when you was talking about Bo Jackson, I was thinking one of my favorite guys was back in the day was Jack Tatum, as far as a guy that can hit you and really put you out. So my next guy that came along was Ronnie Lott. I seen Ronnie Lott hit Walter Payton on the sideline one time. I thought both of them would probably just be dismantled. But they both came back. It was in a playoff game. It was the first year the Bears was really good, but they lost 24-0 in the championship game. But I seen Ronnie Lott come up full speed to hit Bo Jackson. And when he hit him, all I seen is everything go. I seen something fly from Ronnie Lott's equipment and everything, and Bo Jackson ran him straight over and kept going.
So this is when Lott hit Bo Jackson.
Yeah, this is when Lott, and I said it's like nothing didn't even hit him. And when you get hit by Ronnie Lott, you know you're hit. And this guy just ran him straight over and kept on going like he wasn't even there. And that just let me know this guy is a freak of nature.
The thing with Bo Jackson, which really amazes me, is I think Bo Jackson could have been one of the greatest baseball players of all time. Had he stayed healthy and had a good if Bo did not do football and played baseball, Bo Jackson could have played till he was in his 40s. He could have had a 25 year because of his conditioning. And Bo Jackson would have been maybe one of the greatest baseball players, Hall of Famer of all time.
Yeah, he's the modern day Jim Thorpe.
Yep. Yeah, he was. Yep. That's a good point. He was the modern day. Let's hit the phones. We're on the Saturday Morning Sports page. What's up?
Good morning, Pat. Good morning, Dave. How you guys doing?
Hey, Irish Mike. What's happening?
Hey, I bet you guys, gentlemen, I bet you those bigwigs in the NBA front office in New York City are just dying for a NBA final series between the Miami Heat and Denver Nuggets.
Yeah, they're not. Yeah, you know that they're upset because that's the last 2 teams they don't really want in. But maybe, tonight you'll see if the Lakers can get back in it because at least they have not won or lost a home game. But I think I hate to say, but I think the Boston Celtics are finished.
Yeah, you think about this, Pat. You think of the 2 major winter sports. The NBA and the NHL. The NHL's down their Final Four. Now think of these 4 teams, guys. Las Vegas, Dallas, Miami, and Charlotte. 4 warm weather cities. Think about that.
I know. Somebody else brought that up.
You think of hockey, you think of, cold weather, snow, all that other stuff. Toronto,
we
Montreal,
think, that's it.
New York, right?
Edmonton.
Chicago.
Right.
You don't think of Miami and Charlotte and Las Vegas.
No.
What's happening to us?
I know. It's different, I tell you that.
It has been, but, the Denver Nuggets have been a good team. They've just haven't been able to ever win an NBA title. This might be their year, but I don't rule. But watching the Miami Heat play,
can't count them out.
I can't count them out either.
Mm-mm.
I mean, I think it's going to be a great. If it is Miami taking on Denver, I guess I shouldn't be counting Boston out yet. But that's going to be a great series if it's Miami and Denver because the Joker, to me, he might be. He's in the argument. Is he the best player in the game? He's one of, the only thing we didn't get talking about, boy, what is it with NBA coaches getting fired, man? And we didn't get to that on the show.
They're doing too much.
Boy, they just, Doc Rivers gets fired. Monty Williams out.
I don't get how you fire Monty Williams for sure.
Yeah. How did you fire him? Then Nick Nurse Nick Nurse, I guess, kind of wanted out. But Budenholzer, he gets fired. Then it was
Dave, think about this, Dave Clark. You ready? And the Cavs still are employing JB Bickerstaff. Think about that one for a second.
Yeah.
Think about with all these great NBA coaches available, we still have JB Bickerstaff as our head coach. Think about that.
Yeah. He's still there.
That doesn't make sense.
But Gilbert, I think they're looking at it as the team is still a younger team. And I think they like Bickerstaff a lot, so I think they're hesitating about. I think if they flame out next year, I think he probably will get fired. But NBA, man, they clip these coaches, boy, like no tomorrow.
Yes,
I
do.
mean, I was a little taken back that Monty Williams got fired. And Doc Rivers, I had a feeling they were going to fire him. Rumor had it James Harden wanted him out. But now James Harden is rumored to be going to Houston. To me, James Harden he just doesn't, he's an average player at best when it comes to the playoffs. He gives you a good game, and then he doesn't give you enough. He just doesn't show up for the other game. I mean, I don't know what the Sixers are going to
He's like a
ultimately
world
do.
be free. To me, he's like a world be free. Much rather play on a bad team.
Right.
And get his numbers.
Maybe that's where he's going. Is he's going to go now? Here's the other question I have too. What happens if the Celtics get run in 4 games?
Their coach is in trouble. He's in trouble because there's too many quality guys out there, Dave and Pat. There's too many quality guys out there right now for him to survive this. If they get run, if they get beat 4 games on, just the reality of the NBA nowadays.
Yeah.
So Joe Mazzulla would be out as the head coach, and he's just been there 1 year.
Yep.
And if they get swept by Miami, and I think he's a I like him.
Good.
I think he's a very good coach. I mean, and that he's going to, I agree with you.
It probably would happen. You might see Bud up in there. I'm serious.
Well, now they're talking about Coach Bud could go to Philly.
Yeah, very good. I think he will. He's going to be a candidate for one of these jobs.
Frank Vogel he won a title with the
Lakers.
He's supposedly rumored for one of these spots, potentially.
Yep.
But then does Doc Rivers land somewhere else, or does Doc Rivers go to the booth and say he has 2 years left on the contract, so I believe they have to pay him that?
Yep.
So does he just do radio and TV for a year?
Yeah.
And get the money,
recharge the batteries,
recharge and get the check, and he gets paid his salary for those 2 years. Maybe just does radio, TV.
Now the problem with your statement, Pat, about the Cavaliers is people forget this, that Donovan Mitchell has 2 years left. I know he signed a 4-year deal, but the last 2 years are player options. He could opt out after the 24-25 season. So as of right now, today as we speak, he's got 2 years left on the Cavs with the Cavs if he wants that. The owner, Dan Gilbert, said after we lost LeBron 10 years ago when he went to the Miami Heat, that he would never allow free agents to simply walk away. I mean, I know LeBron walked away the second time. I get that, but I think they knew that was coming. But you know what I'm saying? Donovan Mitchell at the time in 2 years from now will be 29 years old, and he'll be still being, a lot of legs left in his career as far as in being in his prime. So, if the Cavaliers get, say, eliminated in the second round next year, next July, next summer, they have difficult decisions to make. Do they want to move forward with this guy for another year with the risk of losing him and getting nothing in return? Or do they demand next summer from him and his agent to sign a long-term contract extension with the Cavaliers?
Yeah.
Because you could argue, guys, they
Yep.
gave up more. The Cavaliers front office gave up more for Donovan Mitchell than the Cleveland Browns front office gave up for Deshaun Watson at quarterback.
Right. Yeah, that's a good point.
Yep.
Yeah, that's going to be a tough. Well, but here's the other thing. If they get, say, because Donovan Mitchell that's his problem. Donovan Mitchell's playoff history isn't so good. He didn't have great playoffs with Utah. Now the Cavs get there, and he was didn't play great against the Knicks, like a no-show. If they get in the playoffs again and Mitchell doesn't play good, do they even want to keep him, or do they want him to say, all right, we need to go in another direction? That could go two ways with Donovan Mitchell. I'm just saying.
Sure, because he finished his sixth year in the NBA. People forget he played 5 years in Utah.
Right.
And Danny Ainge broke that team up. And obviously, Utah's got 1 million draft picks in the next 6 or 7 years and all first-rounders and pick swaps. So within 2 years, Utah is going to be a good franchise. I mean, he's going to bring players in there. Whether they want to live in Salt Lake City or not, it's going to be a good organization.
Right.
And the Cavs not only gave up players for Donovan Mitchell, we gave up 3 number 1 draft picks in 25, 27, 29, plus 2 pick swaps in 26 and 28. So it's probably a better likelihood that, Utah will end up being better than the Cavaliers, so drafting lower, and then they'll have to swap with the Utah because of the pick swap thing.
Right. Oh.
They
That's crazy.
It's not a pretty picture if you think about it, really, from moving forward for the Cavaliers. I mean, we obviously right now, Dave, we're in a win now mode. We all agree with that, correct?
Yep. They got to add something to that team.
Yes.
Yeah, you're right. As of now, Mitchell's got the 2 years, and right, as you said, through 2025. He'll make $35 million that year. Next year, he makes 33. Then he's got the player option for 25, 26, 37 million. Jared Allen's under contract, 20 million through 25, 26. So he's not, and then Darius Garland has got he's through 26, 27. Now Mobley will be final year at 8.8 million next year, and then he's got that team option for 24, 25. So Mobley, at least that team's going to be intact for a couple years.
Yeah, I agree.
They're really not. There's really nobody. They have actually Ricky Rubio signed up through 2025. So,
and he, let's be honest, Pat. When he came back from injury in January, the last 3.5, he did not play very well.
No,
it was not the Ricky Rubio pre-injury. Let's be honest.
Right now, maybe he can work his way back from that injury. Now, obviously, Kevin Love's not on the team anymore. I'm just looking at the team going forward.
And I don't blame that Kevin Love situation. I clearly they wanted to move on him. He was last year of his contract. He struggles to defend people. Now, obviously, he's a good rebounder, but his shooting was really bad this year. So
it seems to be picking up for the Heat.
Now they put Dean Wade in, and he didn't do anything. They benched him for the playoffs, and he didn't. He showed no impact. So from that standpoint, I understand people's frustration. But what we saw at Kevin Love, he was on his last legs in Cleveland.
But he seemed to have resurrected a little bit. I've been watching him with Miami against the Knicks. He came in and hit some big 3-pointers. Yeah. Now he's filled with that team. He's filled in real nicely as far as that role of coming off the bench.
And he's playing a role with them.
He
starts. He doesn't score much. But he spreads the floor out because he just stands on the 3-point arc the whole time because he's a threat to shoot the 3-pointer.
You got it, and that opens it up for the rest of that team. And right now, he kind of fits that team as far as how they approach their offense. And moving forward, I don't know what they'll do ultimately, the Cavaliers, with Donovan Mitchell being their highest paid player. But Darius Garland is obviously going to make more than Donovan Mitchell. Darius Garland will make more than Donovan Mitchell next year and all the following years. He's going to be the highest paid player on the team. So they got their future tied up with Darius Garland and to some extent Donovan Mitchell and Jared Allen are the guys. And then obviously Mobley. You have a core there. So the question is going to be, I guess, with your coach, I think he keeps his job. I think if they flame out next year, then the Cavaliers will probably look to.
The general manager's gone, the head coach is gone. The ball boy's gone. Everybody will be gone. Yes,
they may start. Fact. They won't. They can't get rid of the team, but they get rid of the player, not the players, but the team. Yeah,
and,
but everybody.
I have a friend, David, follows the NBA very closely for all year long from October through the playoffs, and he, I don't know about the Miami Heat's roster as good as him, obviously, but he said that the Heat, one of their best players, broke his hand like 3.5 weeks ago in the playoffs, and he's not available. Is that true?
That was Tyler
Hero.
Tyler Hero was the one that he is their best scorer.
Yep.
And he's out. He broke his hand. They don't have Tyler Hero on that team. And
he's instant offense.
And he's instant offense. Now, some people believe that his injury might be kind of a blessing in disguise because it's getting the other players involved. And there's 4 undrafted players on that Miami Heat team, which goes to show you that Pat Riley might be one of the best GMs, presidents, whatever, as far as constructing a team. He did it with the Knicks. He put that team together that got into the finals and then actually got 2 finals out of that team.
Yep.
He didn't stay for the other team, but Van Gundy took it over. But that was Riley's team that he constructed. He's done it with this team. No LeBron James, obviously, no big superstar, but Butler. But he has assembled a team, again, 4 guys not even drafted. And this team is just playing at a different level.
Yep.
And Riley, again, knows how to put a team together, no doubt about it.
And no doubt about Spoelstra being one of the
And
best
exactly,
coaches.
he's got the best coach.
I mean, that guy can coach.
Well, years ago, when LeBron got there, LeBron butted head with Spoelstra, and supposedly he wanted Spoelstra out. And Riley said, no, you're going to learn to play with him or learn to play for him because he's the guy.
Yeah.
Eric Spoelstra's not going. And he started out at the video. He was the guy, the video guy would video the practices and show him the practice on the video.
Yeah.
And that's where he started with that team and ultimately worked his way up to a head coach and being maybe one of the best if not the best head coach right now in the NBA.
And LeBron admitted that too about him bumping heads when he said as time went, you seen this guy has something in him that other coaches just don't have.
Right. And LeBron came to respect him and realized that, no, this guy's the deal.
Coach.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. And that, and Riley's, Riley and Paul, they're at the hip. Spoelstra's not going anywhere with that team. Riley will keep him there as long as Riley's there as president. And Spoelstra right now is the only thing I could think of is some team gets so desperate, they call and they give him so much money.
Yeah.
One of those knockdown here's $100 million, dollars, but you're right. I mean, I think he is the best coach right now. What he's doing with the Miami Heat is just unbelievable. Nobody saw this coming.
You know what he reminds me of? A younger Popovich, when Popovich would put guys together, Steven Jackson, not that those guys weren't good, but it wasn't big name guys all the time. And in your mild-mannered Tim Duncan, who was probably one of the greatest players ever, and he put those teams together, and they were always there.
You got Ginobili.
Oh.
You found guys like Tony Parker. From where were these guys at?
Hey, Dave Clark.
Yeah.
Don't you think that you mentioned Greg Popovich's name there a little bit earlier? Don't you think Popovich has got rejuvenated on Tuesday night a little bit?
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Oh yeah.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. Oh yeah. The energy level went to he's ready to go. Watch. He's going to be ready to go these next few years.
And he's basically, I believe he is 70.
He's got to be in his 70s.
Right now he is 74 years old. Coach Pop is 74. So the question is going to be,
how long?
How long does he want to stick around to coach into his mid? He's already mid 70s. Does he coach into the latter part of 70s, especially with the young man coming out of France, who's probably going to be the number one pick? I think that's no brainer.
When that last ping pong ball went to them, he was drafted right then. He already knew it. Yeah. He knows he's there.
He's there. So the question:
he's supposed to be the best prospect coming in the NBA since LeBron James 20 years ago.
That's what they say. That's what they say.
Now, when they show his highlights and him playing in the France league with grown guys,
right?
He didn't play in the little league. They put him in the top league over there. He was dominating. So can he come into the NBA and do some of the things? He's going to be a problem because this guy can score inside and he can score from deep. And he can handle the basketball. He really does everything. So we're going to see if it does, filtrate over to the NBA game. Because guys one thing about the NBA, I don't care who these guys could be. They could be guys that's on the bench. They're going to challenge him. And we got to see if he can handle the heat when that comes.
Yeah, it's no doubt. He's going to
That's what we're going to find out because the NBA is no joke. That's a different monster there.
And we're going to see how he does.
Yeah.
And it is a different game for the big man. We'll see how he fits in.
Yeah.
You always worry about real tall guys with foot injuries. That's the only thing that you see that like with some players like Yao Ming was a great player, but he was so big. He kept having those foot problems with broken bones in his feet. He couldn't play because he was like, 7'4", 300 pounds. Well, proportion, muscular, but his feet couldn't take the pounding.
Yeah.
And that's the only question you always have. Now he's slender, so we'll see. But who's the young man came out of Gonzaga that missed his whole first year? Who's the real tall player out of Gonzaga?
He was the first round. Yeah.
Yep.
And he came on in the tournaments last year.
Right.
blocking everything there was.
Right.
I can't think of his name right now.
But
what team did he get drafted by last?
I got to look it up because he has some bad injury too. The injury that he had was really a strange injury, and he never got to play. And I was thinking, oh, Tyler here was it? No, Chet Holmgren.
Yep, that's it.
Chet Holmgren. Mm-hmm. He was the guy that came.
Yep.
He's like 7 foot, but man, he might be like 200 pounds, 7 foot type, really skinny guy and good player. But then his injury was one of those weird injuries that that just, what was it? I just got to look it up. Foot. He missed the entire season because he had that Liz Frank injury to the right foot. And sometimes, and if he's 190 pounds, that's a lot. Because I'll look at the pictures of him.
He's thin.
Yeah. And I mean, he is a rail. I'm going to look at what are they officially 194.
Yeah, they got to get some weight on him.
And he's like 7'1".
We got to get him some meals, Irish Mike.
Yeah. But again,
1-1.
See, the problem with the young guys,
some fish and salmon, get that protein in them.
Yeah, the problem with these guys coming out of college at a young age, at 19 and 20, you just don't know.
Yeah,
because they don't play the 4 years like we talked earlier. Lou Alcindor, Kareem Abdul-Jabbar played 4 years. Walton played 4 years. Patrick Ewing played 4 years. Bird played 4 years.
Yeah. And Dave, Pat, I just saw a mock draft a couple weeks ago, and the top 10 picks, 3 or 4 of those guys aren't even playing college. The kid from France, obviously you mentioned, is clear number 1 pick, but there's 3 other guys that are not even playing major college basketball. They went to that developmental league, or what do they call it?
What is the league called?
I think it's what is it called? The NBA Developmental League, or
the G League.
The G League. Yeah. And you're going to see more of that.
Yeah, and to a certain degree, I think they need to have an alternative for that, because everybody is not college material.
Yeah,
absolutely. After they get done with high school, they're done. They don't have, they might be great at going to a trade school and picking up a trade, but they're not college material to be at college. So they need to have an alternative for them anyway.
And if you guys didn't see this, Bronny James, LeBron's oldest son, is committed to the University of Southern California next year. He's going to play for the USC Trojans.
Yep.
He had it down to USC, Oregon, and Ohio State, and he chose USC. Obviously, because his dad's in LA and it's right down the road, I think, more than any for family purposes, don't you?
Oh, yeah, I think I got a lot.
I don't think he's a one-and-done guy, but he might turn it because, obviously his dad, wherever he gets drafted by, there's a pretty good shot LeBron wants to go there and play with his son more than anything for sentimental reasons. And, he might be a one-and-done guy, even though he should probably, Pat, I know you've often said he should not be a one-and-done guy.
No, he probably should play 2 seasons.
He should.
Unless he just have it's just like let's say he has the Cardell Jones fever and just had one of those seasons in the NCAA that he's just ridiculous. You got to go at your highest peak and go.
Now, he doesn't have to worry about finances. The son obviously doesn't.
Right.
Bronny's sons don't have to worry about.
If you guys remember, gentlemen, correctly, back in the 06-07 season, Thad Matta was the head coach of Ohio State. Greg Oden was the center. Michael Conley was the point guard, and they're both freshmen from Indianapolis that came to Ohio State.
Yep.
And, up until the very end, Michael Conley was not leaving school early. And remember I think it was a second-round game down. They should have lost to Xavier.
Yep.
Remember, Xavier was winning the whole game, and Ohio State had no business winning that game, and Xavier lost in double overtime or something.
Yes.
Right.
Yep.
And Xavier blew like a 7-point lead with 40 seconds left to go in the game.
Right.
It was a crazy ending, but Ohio State had no business. But from there on out, Michael Conley had 3 or 4 great games in a row to end the NCAA tournament, and they lost to the Florida Gators in the national title game that year. And that's when he decided to go to the NBA based upon those 3 games at the end of the tournament after the Xavier game.
Right. Exactly. No, that's
he was not going to go.
You're right.
No, he was not going to go. He said that.
And he didn't have to because his father was his agent.
Yeah.
And the father, he came from a well-to-do family, so he didn't, sometimes these kids have to go. Like Ohio State had that kid Mullins that was homeless, grew up like he was, he was in foster. And at one time homeless in his life, he got in, he was a decent, but he went right to the NBA after 1 year because he was a first-round pick and he had to do for financial reasons, and you understand that.
Right.
But Hey, Irish Mike, thanks for the call.
Yep.
We'll do it again next week, Dave Clark.
Okay. Yep.
Boy, that was a quick 2 hours.
Yeah, always.
And we didn't even get to half the stuff we wanted to.
No, it is not going to happen. It's too hard.
Not with Jim Brown, the greatest player ever.
Yep.
Saturday Morning Sports Page, Dave Clark, Pat Lucia. Stay safe, do not drink and do not drive. Get a designated driver and buckle up.
Hi, it's Mark Means, host of By All Means, Tuesdays at 5, right here on Western Reserve Radio, WRDB, The Scourge.
People been saying to your friend, get a different face, and posting on their feed, they're super ugly. The things they say to them online are cruel and they're not true. So tell your friend, I'll stand up for you. Don't worry, I know what to do.
Know someone being bullied online? You can be a witness and make a difference by letting the world know it isn't